As Willie says, we are on the road again. We left Greenpoint, Florida on the Florida Panhandle on March 30th, and we are making a circuitous route back to the West Coast. We headed north up through Alabama, into Tennessee, to Nashville, and then up into Kentucky, and then back down through Arkansas, and now we're in Texas. So we want to start sharing some of our adventures with you. So hope you enjoy this short narrated video, and we'll do the best we can as we travel along. We drove through the flatlands of Florida, up through Alabama, and actually ran into some hills. It took us a couple of days to get to Nashville. Nashville is split by the Cumberland River, which is still very much a working waterway. We learned that the nickname for Nashville is Nash Vegas. The downtown area is party central, and they boast of being the capital for bachelorette parties. We saw countless beer wagons and old school buses with the roof cut out full of partiers. Nashville has a full-scale replica of the Parthenon. Somebody thought it was a good idea, and home to two Music Hall of Fame, the Musicians Hall of Fame and the Country Western Hall of Fame. We saw walls of gold and platinum records, Elvis's gold-plated Cadillac, and Chet Atkins guitars, just to name a few. We purchased tickets to see Daryl Hall at the Ryman Auditorium and actually did a tour prior to the concert. The Ryman was originally a church to save all those early sinners that frequented Nashville. It fell into disrepair many years later and was saved by a woman who loved it. It has an interesting history, and in fact is where the original Grand Ole Opry radio show was recorded. We drove further north and stopped at Mammoth Caves National Park and did a 4-hour, 4-mile tour. The cave is over 400 miles long, and they say they still haven't found the end. From our camp spot, we drove 25 miles to the National Corvette Museum in Bowling Green. It was well worth the drive. Leanne said she was going to get me a napkin for the drool as we walked around. It can be embarrassing to take me out in public. Back in the truck and off to the Kentucky bourbon country. We next settled into Frankfort, Kentucky, home of Buffalo Trace Distillery and the heart of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. We first went to Castle and Key Distillery for a tour and tasting. It was a great first stop because we got to see the fermentation and the distillery process up close. You can see the vats of yeast brewing, making alcohol. Each of those vats is about 130,000 gallons. In this particular vat, you can see the bubbles from the yeast coming up. We tried to get into Buffalo Trace Distillery, but no luck. We were told just to drop in and see if there was a cancellation. Well, you can see that the line is very long and it was cold and raining. The product would have to be really something special for me to stand in line for hours in the cold and buy it. We also went to Bullet and Four Roses distilleries and had just more fun, as my mother used to say. Needless to say, we are bringing a few samples home with us. We left Frankfort on a cool, cloudy day and headed back to Nashville just as a stopover on our way to Hot Springs, Arkansas to see Hot Springs National Park. We had no idea what we would find in Hot Springs other than perhaps a lot of hot water. It actually was a turn of the century, previous century, healing baths kind of place for the wealthy. The natural waters there could heal anything from the common cold to tuberculosis to syphilis. While Leanne and I didn't have any of those maladies, we did enjoy a nice couple soak in the nurturing, healing waters and followed the next day by a nice massage. Garvin Woodland Gardens is a 200-acre preserve donated to the University of Arkansas. Their School of Architecture and Design, along with various garden clubs and master gardeners, manage the property. This is also located in Hot Springs. The School of Architecture and Design built a tree house that is amazing, and the azaleas were spectacular. We arrived in Campbell, Texas on April 16th, which is about 50 miles northeast of Dallas. Tomorrow on the 19th, we're driving south looking for warmer weather and will camp in Waco, Texas. The weather has been cool and cloudy since we left Florida. And in fact, there have been a number of thunder and lightning storms that we've been in on our way. Some of the thunder is so strong it shook our trailer and it was a little bit scary. And then Sadie, our little dog, was frightened to death. It also doesn't rain like it does on the West Coast. It rains here in gallon-sized drops. I'm afraid if I looked up, I'd drown. So as we're driving down the freeways, it doesn't say watch for puddles on the road. It says watch for ponds on the road. So we leave tomorrow on the 19th for Waco, Texas, and watch for our upcoming video.